I'll now call the Tuesday, October 27th, 2020 regular meeting of council to order. First item of business is the adoption of this evening's agenda. And a motion please that the agenda for October 27, 2020 regular meeting of council be adopted as amended to include item 7.1, LGL limited request for letter of support. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Blanchette, any additions? Any discussion on the addition? All in favor? It's carried. We have time for item 3.1, public comments. Were any public comments received in written form, Mr. Administrator?
There are none.
Thank you. Item 4.1, adoption of the previous minutes, October 13, 2020. Councillor G, Councillor MacLean, any errors, omissions arising? All in favor of adoption? It's carried. Delegations under section 5.1. We have a delegation from the Royal Canadian Legion, branch 266, with a presentation of our first poppy. Ms. Birkbeck, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Marie Birkbeck, 1433 6th Ave for the next month. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Royal Canadian Legion, Valemount. I just have a little... Poppies are recognized as a national symbol of remembrance for the 117,000 Canadian men and women who gave their life during World War I, doing military service around the world. The funds raised each year through the National Poppy Campaign go back into programs and services for the veterans and their families. The annual Poppy Campaign is about to be launched in Valemount and across the country. Poppies will be available to the general public commencing October 30th and running through till November 11th. Please watch for a news release regarding our local Remembrance Day ceremonies. On behalf of the Royal Canadian Legion Valemount Branch 266, I am honored to present the first poppy to the Mayor and Council of the Village of Valemount. Recognizing the COVID-19 protocols, we will forego the practice of pinning the poppies. Instead, I have them here on this beret, and you will be invited to pick your own poppy and wear it with pride. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember.
And so... Cover your eyes.
Cover my eyes. Happens all the time. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Oops, we're stuck in there pretty good.
Oh, thanks.
I'll go this way. You're welcome. I'm gonna have to back up there anyway. I'll trip on this so I can have it. And now I think we're going to have a little photo op.
Yeah, we're just going to step around the back. You want to go in the...
Just in the front here, Marie?
Okay. Everybody see everybody?
Smile.
Okay, make your eyes twinkle. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Motion please to receive the delegation. Councillor Pearson, Councillor MacLean, are there any questions or comments for the delegation before you go, Marie?
Thank you. Thank you. You're very welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome. Thanks a lot.
All in favor of receipt? It's carried. Item 5.2, we have a second delegation from Macola Development Services regarding the proposed housing and childcare development at 1451 Fifth Avenue. Electronically.
Hello. We do have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm hoping that someone's able to display it for council's viewing.
We all have it available yet.
Okay. Then Riley from RVCS will be opening. Go ahead, Riley.
It's on the
Good
agenda.
evening, Mr. Mayor and Councilors. My name is Riley Poltergeist, and I'm the Executive Assistant at Rossum Valley Community Services. I am joined today by Julie Edden, Project Planner and the COLA Development Services, who will be co-presenting with me. Thank you for inviting us to this meeting today and allowing us the opportunity to discuss what we see as a very exciting and a highly impactful project that will benefit the village and surrounding communities for generations to come. This is Rossum Valley Community Services proposed development of the 1451 Fifth Avenue site. Before we begin, I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge that the project site in discussion, as well as the territory on which this meeting is convened, is the traditional territory of the First Nation, whose people in 1916 were forcibly removed from the area and relocated nearly 300 kilometers from their home. For some added context to this presentation, the content will be organized as follows. We begin with some instructions, orientation to the development site context, followed by an updated project overview. Then we will present some key components of the proposed design concepts that have been developed to date, before concluding with an overview of the development timeline that has brought our proposal to its present state. As you are likely aware, Rossum Valley Community Services is a well-established, not-for-profit community service provider in the Rossum Valley. In 2018 to 2019, Rossum Valley Community Services supported over 1,800 community members living in the Rossum Valley through a wide range of programs serving diverse clientele groups from infants to seniors. Through our work in Valemount and surrounding communities, we have identified an urgent need for safe, secure, and affordable housing for self-identifying women with or without dependents who are vulnerable to violence or have a goal of transitioning out of unhealthy living situations where access to affordable housing is a barrier. In 2018, based on the observed need, Rossum Valley Community Services submitted an expression of interest to BC's Housing Women Transition to Housing Fund, and our proposed project was selected as one of 11 across the province to enhance the network of full-spectrum options for affordable accommodations for women and children fleeing violence, including safe homes, transition housing, sex-based housing, and affordable rental housing. In addition to this, there is a great need for affordable childcare in Valemount. A lack of childcare service is a consistent barrier to having working professionals such as healthcare workers join our community, and bars many families from having that ability to have two working parents in an area where the cost of living is high. It is our intent to utilize this provincial funding provided by the Ministry of Children and Family Development to reduce barriers to childcare in our community, which is critical to the economic and social health of the village of Valemount. The Valemount Children's Center will provide a socially stimulating, multicultural, and community-oriented environment to help kids grow, learn, and prosper in a space devoted to holistically nurturing childhood development while addressing the physical, relational, and emotional and intellectual aspects of a child's life. As a community partner, the Columbia Basin Trust reached out to help move this project forward and introduced Rossum Valley Community Services to MacLean Development Services, who is acting as a development consultant in this project. Now, Julie Edden, Project Planner with MacLean Development Services, will take you through the project details.
Thank you, Riley. So, the site we're discussing today is village-owned and was identified for RVCS's proposed use after the society approached the village for a land donation to support the construction of a mixed-use affordable housing development for women and children. At that time, the proposed development did include a child care facility on the ground floor, though it was later removed and then added back in. When proposed, the preferred site features highlighted included the lot's close proximity to local amenities, such as the health clinic and the RCMP detachment office next door, as well as the existence of site servicing. The site is located mid-block and extends from 5th to 6th Avenue, which is a quiet street that fronts onto residential homes, as pictured on the next slide. The site was recently rezoned from C4 Highway Tourist Commercial to R5 High Density Residential to support a multifamily housing and office use on site. And moving to the next slide, the site's OCP designation was also recently amended to MF Multiple Family Residential to align with the new zoning. And now, following a delayed award of provincial funding, we are now proposing to rezone the site once more to include daycare as a site-specific permitted use in order to support the provision of much-needed childcare programming on the ground floor of the proposed building. As mentioned, the development proposal for the site now includes a childcare component on the ground floor to be located below 14 units of affordable rental housing for a total of 3 stories. This development will be designed to offer safe, affordable housing as well as wraparound supports for women and children at risk of or affected by violence. And the provision of on-site childcare will benefit tenant families as well as the wider Valemount area community, which is experiencing a severe shortage of licensed childcare spaces. Though included as a part of the initial development proposal, after consulting with BC Housing, the development team made the decision to remove the childcare use from the July 2020 rezoning application in order to avoid complicating the housing proposal for the potential childcare facility that seemed increasingly unlikely to materialize at the time, given the 7-month delay in funding response from NCFP. Furthermore, as funding for the housing component was announced by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing in November of 2019, the Society risked losing this funding if the project did not demonstrate any advancement through municipal approvals. Incidentally, shortly after the recent approval of the site rezoning, the development team was surprised to hear from the Ministry of Children and Family Development that the project had indeed secured full funding to construct the Child Care Center, to be called the Valemount Children's Center. This was very welcome news, as it also meant that previously committed funds associated with the child care offered by Columbia Basin Trust will remain tied to the project and provide valuable support for the initiation of the build. So, moving on to the design. To summarize what uses will be contained within the building and supported by the building design, here's an overview of the key design components we have in mind for this project, broken down by building level. On the ground floor, we'll have offices, which will be able to support the residential component, providing the wraparound support services I mentioned. We'll have storage, washrooms, separate entrances for the daycare component and the residential component. There will be surface parking on the outside, so 12 stalls in total. And the Valemount Children's Center itself will be located on the ground floor, including playrooms, nap rooms, a kitchen, offices, storage, and then an outdoor play area outside that will be fully fenced in. On the second and third floors will be the residential units, 14 units in total, and a mix of studio, 1 and 2 bedroom layouts. These units will be accessible via a secured elevator and a stairwell. On the next slide, you'll see a draft site plan, which has been spliced in half for ease of display in PowerPoint format. And it demonstrates a concept of what the ground floor of the building could look like, accommodating the office and childcare uses on the ground floor, with a securely fenced-in play area, as well as surface parking on the south end of the site. This is a concept design only and is subject to change as we progress towards a development permit application. On the next slide, you see some context images. These are photos of 2 recently built mixed-use childcare centers to give you an idea of what the Valemount Children's Center building could look like once completed. Finally, we provided a timeline breakdown for you of the project's history to date. It started with a successful expression of interest application to BC Housing's Building BC Women's Transition Housing Fund, which was then followed up with an application to MCFD's New Spaces Fund, with the Village of Valemount support as a public sector partner. It is worth noting that between the time when the village resolved to act as a public sector partner and the actual application submission, the program parameters changed to allow the project to access up to $3 million with the public sector partner, and this greatly improved the feasibility of the project. Columbia Basin Trust joined as an important ally for the project through financial support committed through their Child Care Capital Fund as well. In July of 2020, after delaying the rezoning of the site for more than 6 months while waiting to hear from MCFD, the team needed to proceed with municipal approvals and sought to rezone the property for strictly residential and office uses. Shortly after the bylaw and OCP amendments were completed, MCFD funding was confirmed, which triggered the Society's current application to again rezone the property to accommodate the daycare use this time. Once rezoning is completed, the next steps for the project include design team procurement, executing an operating and lease agreement between the Society, the Village, and BC Housing, and solidifying a full schematic design with input from a complete design team before coming back to Council and requesting a development permit. And that concludes our presentation. We'd be happy to answer any questions from Council at this time.
Thanks very much. Motion please to receive the delegation. Councillor G, Councillor Pearson, any questions, comments for the delegation? Councillor Pearson.
My one question would be the parking issue. 12 stalls of parking for staff, residents, and 72 potential daycare spaces. I see that not being really sufficient parking to support the building, so I'm just wondering if there's other options for that.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. So we have considered this, and we understand that the uses of the parking stalls will be staggered. So in the evenings, when residents will be at home, the daycare and office workers will not typically be on site in as much volume, and so there will be sharing of those stalls, and the timing should work out. But if not, there are other options, and if needed, we could apply for a variance to the city once we advance through to a more refined design.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend following up with staff on what the requirements would be bylaw-wise for both residential and staff parking, but just something to put in paper for down the road.
Yeah, good idea. Further questions? No? Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you reaching out to the village. It's nice. It's always nice to hear from Macola. Understanding that the provincial delays in funding response can throw a stick into anybody's spoke. So thank you for your diligence and your tenaciousness to move this project forward. And we look forward to working with you more often in the future. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All in favor of receipt? It's carried. 7.1, the correspondence for action under new business, or for as a new item, a letter of support be provided to LGL Limited in support of their funding application, and I'll just add to this, to the Fish and Wildlife Compensation Fund for a Canoe Valley Wildlife Habitat Enhancement Project. What is Council's wish? Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Pearson, any questions, discussion? Is that a twitch, Councillor Blanchette, or?
Sorry.
All in favor? It's carried. Anything in the reading file anyone would like to pull out, highlight? Councillor Blanchette?
Just the letter to municipalities from Dr. Bonnie Henry about the immunization. Just to let people know that that is a possibility, that we could open up some of our larger buildings, but that COVID protocols will be followed.
Yeah, absolutely. I've reached out to Northern Health to ensure that they're aware of what facilities we have and to work with administration and council when the time comes.
Perfect.
Anything else? Item 9.1, the 2020 third quarterly budget report to be received. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor G, any discussion on receipt? All in favor? It's carried. 9.2, inspections for existing solid fuel burning appliances, and the recommendation here that in keeping with the Regional District Fraser Fort George best practice, and to lessen the liability to the village staff to be directed to cease providing inspection for existing solid fuel burning appliances. Councillor Pearson, Councillor G, discussion? Councillor Pearson?
Yeah, it was an interesting turn of events. One really hadn't thought about the liability of doing these inspections and approvals, so I guess we put it on to somebody who has the wet certificate and let them carry it. So.
Let the private sector take it on. Any further discussion? All in favor? It's carried. 9.3, Northern Development Grant Writing Support Program. First recommendation here that staff be directed to the NDIT Grant Writing Support Program for 2021. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor G, discussion? All in favor? It's carried. And 2, that staff be directed to request financial support from the Valemount Community Forest for the community grant writer for 2021. Councillor Pearson, Councillor MacLean, any discussion? Councillor Blanchette?
Just that our grant writer that we have is really fantastic. I work with her quite a bit, and she's fabulous in her job. Really appreciate her.
Awesome. Further discussion? You'll forward council's acclamation that Krista rocks?
Absolutely.
Sweet. And further discussion? All in favor? Carried. 9.4, the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch Policy Directive Report be received. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor G, discussion. So a provincial ministerial order extending patio expansion to remain open till October 31st, 2021. All in favor? Carries. Under item section 10, bylaws and policies, 10.1, the Village of Valemount permissive tax exemption bylaw number 831 be adopted as presented. Councillor MacLean, Councillor Blanchette, any discussion on final adoption? All in favor? It's carried. 10.2, Village of Valemount Council remuneration bylaw number 836/2020 be given first and second reading. Councillor Blanchette. Councillor G, discussion. All in favor? It's carried. 10.3, Village of Valemount zoning bylaw number 610/2007, amendment bylaw number 835/2020.
I'd like to recuse myself as chair of RVCS.
Thank you. Councillor G.
As well, as an employee.
Thank you. What's council's wish? Councillor Pearson as read in the recommendation.
Correct.
Seconder, Councillor MacLean, discussion. I have a question for administration. This won't require another OCP amendment. It's site specific.
This is site specific, so there is no other OCP amendment that has to take place.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Pass first and second reading. Time now for 11.1 council reports. Councillor G, you're feverishly writing.
I've had a pretty quiet couple weeks. I don't have anything to report.
Councillor Blanchette?
I have one thing. The 15th was our housing meeting, and I just want to let councils know for information that we discussed preparing a business plan for the housing coordinator position. So that'll be coming to us at some point. There's been a lot of discussion about this position, and just keep in mind that housing is critical in our community, and this position needs to be done full-time, not off of somebody's desk. So we're trying to figure out how this would look, and more to follow.
This is from the Committee of Council Housing Committee?
Yes. Yeah.
Fair enough. I have a question for you later. Councillor MacLean? I'm sorry, were you?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor MacLean?
I only had one thing. On November the 20th, I had a telecon with Jill Duty, Director of the Golden Community Co-op. Jill was reaching out to us as the consultant. She is the consultant hired by the Golden Community Economic Development Function, whatever that is. I'm assuming that it's from council, their economic development, to create a multi-stakeholder engagement plan toward creating a governance model and functioning entity with sufficient funding that works to establish a local government structure to speak to or facilitate activities on or around the Kinbasket Reservoir region. They envision this to include all communities and First Nations groups affected by the reservoir. I have many questions about this regarding how this new governance group is envisioned to work with the current local government committee, funding, leadership by Golden, and hope to have some answers by the next meeting.
I appreciate that. So just to reiterate, this is through your role with the local government?
Yes, it
committee?
is.
Okay. Of the CRT?
Of the CRT.
Thank you so much. Councillor Pearson?
Just a couple of things to mention. October 14th, had a meeting along with Mayor and CAO with our MP Bob Zimmer and his assistant Anita, and very good conversation on the needs and wants of the valley and how we are surviving through the pandemic. It was a very good conversation. And October 16th, rather last minute visit with our NDP candidate for Prince George Valemount, Laura Perront. And we had a nice visit and talking about both sides of the table on what our issues are in the valley and what she was fighting for. So,
Thank you so much. Did you recognize that little dig, Council?
I did.
You did.
Thank you.
isn't it dig?
We all appreciate you
We did.
I
being
certainly did.
last minute there.
Yes.
I too joined Councillor Pearson, as mentioned, with very quick, well, we made it longer than planned, but with MP Zimmer and his office staff. October the 14th, I had a conference call with a regional information center around the natural resources worker accommodation facilities and how they were working through their COVID guidelines as put forth by Dr. Bonnie Henry. So those camps such as the Coastal Gas Link, Trans Mountain, Site C, Mount Milligan, all seem to be faring well under the guidelines, having tales of success, tales of woe as well. So it's good to see that they're coming together and presenting how they're doing in those environments. Later that evening, had an all-masked VARDA AGM and board meeting. Board meeting was the first time meeting in person at the VARDA office. Of course, physical distancing, even with masks, were recognized. Hats off to the outgoing, remaining, and incoming new directors of the VARDA board, and I thank them all for their stepping up. October 15th, continuation in week 2 for the my Ethical Resilient Civic Leadership course. And then later that day, Regional District Fraser Fort George board meeting. October 20, enjoyed a briefing with our Valemount Emergency Services. And then on the 22nd, again, week 3 being with the Ethical Resilient Civic Leadership course. I had an interview on October 26th with Tanex. Tanex is the contractor that was awarded the contract to do the regional district connectivity study. And so the representative from there wanted an idea of some of the wins and losses that we're having with connectivity here in the Valemount area. Today, I had this morning an RCMP Valemount external review with the Staff Sergeant Rick Coop from Division E down at the coast. I guess long overdue for this area. Typically they have an external review every 5-6 years, and it had been closer to 10 to 15 for this area. That's either saying we're doing okay or overlooked. Hopefully it's the former. And then again, a briefing with Valemount Emergency Services in the early afternoon. Following right after that, a Kinbasket Debris Management Joint Committee with members from Golden. Just a quick update. Kinbasket did surcharge this year, and so earlier in the year, that was approved by the Comptroller of Water Rights and thusly increased funding for debris management. And then finally, I just want to say, general election day was October 24, and I want to thank all the candidates for putting their names forward on the ballot. I wish to offer my congratulations to Mr. John Horgan and the BC NDP on their projected win to govern this great province. The Village of Valemount looks forward to working with his government for the next 4 years. To Mr. Andrew Wilkinson, as he has announced he will be stepping down as leader of the BC Liberals, I want to thank him for his years of service to British Columbia. And of course, he will continue his work as MLA-elect in his riding of Vancouver-Quilchena. And finally, I can't say it largely or often enough, to our incumbent MLA-elect, Shirley Bond. I say thank you for her decision to seek re-election in this riding of Prince George Valemount. I am, as I'm sure we all are, so proud to work with her and her role with Team Valemount upon the reinstatement of the legislature. So, my report. Motion to receive. Councillor Pearson, Councillor MacLean. Any questions of each other's reports? Comments?
Did your heart sink when the RCMP called you? Mine did. I pressed my machine and I went, what?
Luckily, mine was in an email from administration, so mine still sunk.
Yeah.
Councillor Blanchette, the housing committee, they're working closely with staff to ensure that how this position will be paid for and or okay.
Yeah, all the T's will be crossed and I's will be dotted when it's brought to council as far as we can think, There'll be other things that I'm sure will get flushed out, but yeah.
Thanks so much. All in favor of receipt? It's carried. So we're not proceeding in camera, so I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Pearson.